Let that title settle in your spirit like thunder wrapped in silk. Because it's not just a poetic line. It's a spiritual alert. You, chosen one, are not starting something. You're finishing it. You are the final link in a prophet's chain. The living, breathing fulfillment of a word spoken long before your name ever hit this earth. The prayers of your ancestors have wrapped around your DNA. The visions of prophets you never met now move through your hands. And every force that's tried to break you has failed for one holy reason. You were the endpoint heaven was waiting for. Now here's the part no one tells you. They couldn't eliminate your calling, so they tried to contain it. Don't take that personally. Take it prophetically. They built systems, families, careers, and cultures not to nurture you, but to numb you. They tried to wire you into dysfunction so deeply that you'd forget you were ever divine. But here's where the divine twist hits. God didn't place you in that system to conform. He placed you there to collapse it. You weren't born into it by accident. You were embedded, like a holy disruption, an internal sabotage to the world's illusion. It was never about fitting in. It was about finishing what they started. You're the one carrying the code they couldn't crack, the voice they tried to silence, the answer they feared would wake the whole room. And that's exactly why the pressure has been heavier on you than anyone else. You were never meant to survive the system. You were meant to end it. So if you feel like the black sheep, the outcast, the misfit, congratulations. That's not dysfunction. That's divine distinction. You were marked, mismatched on purpose. Because heaven needed one who could walk into the stronghold and burn the blueprint. Now the chain is complete. And when you rise, everything that once oppressed, you will feel the snap of what happens when divine timing meets a living prophecy. You are the finale that hell never saw coming. Let's talk about why the chosen are always the first to be targeted. Because when you carry the last word, the war always starts with you. You were concealed for a strategic ambush. You weren't turned away. You were concealed for a calculated ambush, not rejected. And it's not a sentimental catchphrase. It's the truth. That wasn't failure, the quiet, the wait, the seasons you missed because no one shouted your name. That was the concealing of God. There was no punishment for you. They were keeping you safe. God isn't ignoring you while you're hidden. He's defending something the adversary can't deal with too soon. Because they would have assaulted you sooner if you had left before the appointed hour. Additionally, it's possible that you might have chosen to survive rather than assume complete leadership. God will sometimes keep you out of the spotlight so he can develop in you qualities that the public cannot force. In order to prevent you from recoiling when the moment for war comes, he will lead you through silent conflicts. You were getting ready as others performed. As others sought approval, you were strengthening yourself. Although you lacked the limelight, you had a plan. Although you lacked a stage, your wounds taught you more than any mentor could. In actuality, visibility is the only thing that people celebrate. However, timing is celebrated in paradise, and concealment is necessary for timing. Because of this, you've been acting like the best-kept secret in the world. God forbade you from being seen. It was because they weren't prepared, not because you were. The anointed, dangerous, and true you were too much for them to handle. Therefore, God allowed you to develop in seclusion, move quietly, and heal profoundly. Therefore, there won't be any doubt when he does reveal you. It wasn't a stroke of luck. The hype wasn't real. It was sacred. You have been undervalued because of this. They've just seen the trailer, not because you're weak. They haven't seen the whole film. Furthermore, it won't be subtle when the actual release occurs. There will be an ambush, not for your pride, but for every institution, framework, and fortress that believed it could confine you. You weren't forgotten. You were concealed. You're loaded now. Your trauma was training, not a trap. It wasn't a trap, your pain. It was a training session. The anguish you endured wasn't arbitrary. It was specially crafted pressure to mold you into a person that hell cannot control. Every breakdown, betrayal, and night of tears you shed, wondering if it was all for naught, was really honing something inside of you that comfort could never soothe. You weren't only getting by. They were shaping you. Others would crumble beneath the weight you were learning to bear. The establishment thought that your trauma would make you quiet, little, and docile. It didn't. A version of you that couldn't have been born at ease was set off by it. You don't stroll into power like that anymore. It is earned via times when all you had was your faith and your struggle, not via titles or accolades. You were battling agony in the dark while others were out here attempting to escape it. Rather of destroying you, it created something sacred, a spirit that cannot be purchased, perseverance, and sensitivity. Ease never unlocks things the way pain does. It trained you to listen to what other people don't hear. You gained wisdom from it. Before a single word is spoken, you can sense the change in a room. Your scars have educated your eyes to see through others, not because you're judgmental. Trauma is not that. Spiritual intelligence is that. The adversary wagered on your trauma, making you resentful. He was defeated. Rather, you gave it more depth. You transformed what ought to have been your grave into words that no one else could understand. You don't talk theoretically. From the trenches, you speak. People lean in when you speak because of this. Your words have weight. So, no, your suffering wasn't in vain. It was getting ready. You weren't trapped by it. You were trained by it. You now move with an authority that can only be learned in a fire, not in a classroom. You were born to construct the whole room, so they didn't give you a seat at the table. You weren't supposed to sit at the table, so they didn't give you a seat. You were destined to construct the whole space. That's why you always felt strange when you attempted to blend in. Not because you weren't worthy. You were just wired differently. Rules designed to keep you tiny were never intended for you. Your purpose was to rewrite them. Not only was the system you were excluded from skewed, it was damaged. You were not allowed in, as your presence would have revealed all of its falsities. You're not the kind of person who plays the game to win favor or smiles through dysfunction. They saw you as a danger rather than a peer because of this. You were dangerous because you were uncontrollable. In the hopes that you would shrink and leave, they excluded you rather than welcoming you in. However, they just made you construct something better. Their stage, their seat, and their approval are not necessary for you. Your own blueprint is with you. You construct what they don't think is feasible and see what they can't see. Additionally, you move with freedom they will never comprehend since you have never relied on their approval. There is a higher architect to whom you report. Your suggestions are thus too audacious for safe places. That's why even when you whisper, your voice trembles the room. They wanted you to believe that being left out was a sign of failure. However, God redirected them via exclusion. Because you may have conformed if you had been welcomed. It's possible that you have lost your edge, your fire, and your clarity. Their designs were never meant for you. You were made to append them and invent something. A place that respects people like you rather than simply tolerating them. A space where ego is subordinated to truth. When politics loses and imagination triumphs. You weren't passed over for a seat because you weren't valuable. Your calling was too great for you to sit, thus you were turned down. It was designed to be able to stand, talk, and move the whole space. You are no longer knocking on doors. You're constructing them. Fear was the foundation of their system. But revelation is what drives you. Fear served as the foundation for their system, which was centered on control, scarcity, and an obsession with maintaining order. The currency that keeps it going is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failing, fear of losing stability. It instills in individuals the values of shrinking, silence, unquestioning obedience, and never questioning the norms. If the system can enclose your thoughts, it doesn't need to enclose your hands. It operates that way, by conditioning, not by coercion. It instructs you to compromise your voice for comfort. However, you're constructed differently. You aren't motivated by fear. On revelation, you're sprinting. You make decisions based on what has been disclosed to you in the hidden location rather than what the general population believes to be right. The regulations don't apply to you because of this. Fear tactics bounce off you like rubber bullets because of this. You have seen too much in the spirit to be subject to physical control. Playing their game is not why you are here. To turn the tide, you're here. Your credentials aren't compatible with their system. You arrive with miraculous clarity. Trends don't come from you. You are truthful. You don't look for power. Impact is released. You don't change results. You follow directions. Because of such, you are dangerous. They are unsure of how to handle you because of this. Attacking from the front is not your strategy. Using the blueprints that heaven handed you while everyone else was networking, you demolish buildings from inside. They refer to it as revolt. However, it's a discovery. For the sake of anarchy, you are not anti-system. Because you are aware that what they constructed cannot support what God will accomplish next. You are post-structure. Because of this, you are misinterpreted. You don't fit because of this. You weren't designed to adjust. You were chosen to cause trouble. Additionally, your weapons don't seem to be status or power plays. They seem to be the sort of insanity that disrupts cycles, the kind of vision that offends the accustomed, the kind of conviction, knowledge, and authority clothed in humility. You don't battle for their acceptance. You relocate in order to complete your task. And what makes you unique is that very thing. They'll never understand the codes you carry. They will never understand the codes you bear. Not because you're superior, but rather because you're based on something more profound, spiritual, old, and impervious to systems at the surface level. You didn't learn it at a seminar, podcast, or book. It comes via spiritual inheritance, bloodline suffering, and wars your ancestors lost so you could. You're programmed, not simply gifted. Additionally, such code is uncopyable, unmimicable, and unprofitable. People attempt to learn from you, imitate you, and even collaborate with you because of this. However, since you don't follow logic, they are still unable to understand how you move. You are wired for prophecy. Trends are not what you're following. You're doing what you're told. You're connected in addition to being creative. Because of the activation that is ingrained in your DNA, rather than merely your gift, your presence changes the environment. Most likely, you've noticed it. To stand out, you don't have to put forth much effort. You just do. It's not arrogance either. Anointing is what it is. Your life has a spiritual stamp that even you are unable to completely describe. You are frustrated by established systems because of this. To blend in, they want you to lighten your load. However, your code doesn't become smaller. It causes disturbances. Permission is not requested. On assignment, it moves. Since your code is unique, you cannot be copied. There is no class for divine design, thus you cannot be coerced into doing this. You cannot be confined because anything born of revelation cannot be housed in a framework constructed out of fear. You've always felt different because of this. They were just imprinted with something they were never supposed to comprehend. They were neither damaged nor lost. You weren't intended to be like them. You were designed to shatter it. You are a live example of how divine strategy may operate without human systems' consent. You're not just picked. Impact is ingrained in you. You are the antidote to a world addicted to control. In a society that is addicted to control, you are the disturbance of paradise. It's not poetic either. It's foretelling. You weren't put here to keep things as they are. You were made to challenge established norms. Predictability is what systems want. They like it when people keep in line, do as they are told, and don't ask too many questions. However, when you, the selected ones, arrive, the mood shifts. Not because you're noisy, but because your sheer existence puts the control they've used to construct their universe at jeopardy. You don't just enter rooms. You move them. By nature, not by coercion. Truth, even when spoken, is confronting, and you bear it. They call you too intense, too deep, or too much because of this. You're too alert for their comfort zone, which is what they truly mean. Simply by being there, you reveal things. People have become used to disorder masquerading as order. Custom that is unrelated to reality. Fake tranquility that is really simply subdued oppression. You weren't called to act appropriately, to make fragile people feel comfortable. You weren't told to blend in, play it safe, or water yourself down. Your phoning intentionally causes disruption. You don't cause problems. You break the pattern. You don't act rebelliously. You are revolutionary. God has given you a quality that is incompatible with mediocrity, with being silent in the face of injustice, or with meaningless rituals. You are uneasy in areas that others find cozy because of this. You're here to expose false peace, combat falsehoods, and jolt others out of spiritual apathy. You weren't built to go along to get along. Your voice has weight because it is charged, not because it is flawless. It has grease on it. It contains warfare. Heaven is in the background. So, no, not everyone will like you. Not every room will be open to you. However, that isn't rejection. That's acknowledgement. Even if they are unable to identify what you carry, they are aware of it. Being safe is not why you are here. To shake the earth is why you are here. You are a sacred contradiction, yet the system thrives on conformity. Conformity is what the system feeds on. It flourishes when individuals surrender their individuality for acceptability, adhere to expectations, and follow the script. Simply repeating it requires no thought on your part. It is not interested in difference. It desires duplication. Those who fit in, keep little, and never question why are rewarded. But the glitch is you. You were never intended to blend in. You were destined to interrupt. They don't understand you. The point is that in a society that only honors classifications, you are a living contradiction. You are kind and full of fire. You have elegance while speaking the truth. Despite your bravery, you have given up. You move calmly while shaking the room. Because you are difficult to describe, they are unsure of how to handle someone like you. You have experience. You are labeled too much, too passionate, too emotional, too deep, and too honest because of this. In reality, they are saying that you are uncontrollable. You make them uncomfortable. They have become numb to the routine, and you break it. Applause doesn't speak for you. From assignment, you talk. To make your reality more acceptable, you don't sugarcoat it. You let it all out, because that's how people really find freedom. Moderation is not your purpose. You're not here to make minor adjustments to a flawed system. If it means creating room for what's genuine, you're here to burn it down. Because of this, you've always felt alienated in groups where everyone behaves in the same manner, but none is sincere. Due to the fact that you are not wired for performance. You're designed to cause trouble. Indeed, you perplex others, but that perplexity is sacred as it causes them to reevaluate what they have accepted as normal. You expose the system's true shallowness, how it is afraid of everything that it cannot categorize, package, or profit from. You weren't intended to follow the crowd. You were made to completely cross the line. You're not an error. In a world that is dependent on the known, you are a message, a holy paradox. You're building altars where systems fall, not disrupting cycles. You're doing more than merely ending cycles. Where systems collapse, you're building altars. There is a distinction. What's broken is visible to everyone. Anyone may rebel against dysfunction. However, those who are selected don't give up easily. They reconstruct. You weren't called to destroy everything. Following the collapse, you were asked to leave a holy mark on the earth. Because of such, you are dangerous. You don't simply make noise to make noise. You sanctify the areas where they attempted to bury you and what was formerly defiled. God now utilizes that same earth as a platform. The rejection, the silence, and the treachery weren't arbitrary assaults. They were efforts to thwart God's plan while you were dressed in His flesh. However, you now have power in the same locations where you were injured. That isn't therapeutic. Transformation is that. The opponent is terrified because of this. You sanctify, not just survive. The atmosphere shifts when you arrive because your past is filled with prophecy rather than simply suffering. You have scars that indicate territory gained rather than loss. You've endured enough to be resentful, yet you turned it into a spiritual experience. Altars are just that. Sacred places constructed on battlegrounds. Not to exalt the suffering, but to exalt the work that God accomplished through it. You emerge from the system with a legacy in your hands, but it falls apart under its own weight. You are more than simply a cycling escapee. You are the kind of person who ensures that they are not repeated by others. It's altar work. Kingdom work is that. Freedom isn't all you carry. You ground it in areas that were formerly dominated by trauma. You're not just set free. You ensure that freedom endures. By yourself, you are not a cycle breaker. You are a sacred architect and a ground changer. Where others saw wreckage, you created a place of worship. And now your calling is built upon the exact institution that attempted to destroy you. They used metrics that you weren't supposed to fit. Because you didn't play their game, they called you inadequate after measuring you using criteria that weren't intended for you. They wanted visibility, polish, numbers, and recognition. However, looking spectacular was never the goal of your project. It has to do with obedience. God was observing posture as they graded performance. Heaven recorded your yes, your perseverance, and your capacity to remain loyal in the face of infidelity, while they measured followers, position, and influence. Their system was never intended to produce you. Their standards felt oppressive because of this. The church stages, the boardrooms, and the classrooms. Each of them used rubrics that failed to take your calling into consideration. You were punished for being unique, for asking more profound questions, and for having intuitions that others were unable to articulate. You weren't failing. A structure too shallow to gauge depth just misdiagnosed you. Their test was quite different from God's. He assessed your ability to deal with hidden seasons, your reaction to doors that were closed, and your ability to maintain the vision even when it seemed like nothing was happening. Heaven saw you completing every exam with silent perfection, while everyone else believed you were stagnating. You're still standing because of this. Because of this, you continue to gain favor even when your qualifications don't. You were never meant to be a number, which is why they were unable to measure you. You are a sign from God shown in human form. They rejected it because they were unsure of how to classify it. However, God never required you to conform to their plan. You had to break it up for Him. Yes, you continued to show up even after you were given terrible results on a test you weren't even allowed to take. You continued to construct. When reasoning didn't work, you continued to move by revelation. Heaven listened. People didn't promote you. You were placed there on purpose. According to the system, you failed. You went by without saying anything, and it was all seen by God. You're here for prophetic detonation, not for popularity. Popularity is not your goal. Prophetic detonation is the reason you are here. You function on a different frequency than the world, which often conflates influence with approbation. You weren't ordained to get likes, stay out of arguments, or maintain harmony at all costs. Your goal is to set off a strong, unsettling force. Your inner light isn't intended to cheer everyone up. Its purpose is to upset foundations and rouse dormant things. Because of this, people are uneasy around you before you even speak. It has nothing to do with being impolite or hostile. It's because you have an uncontrollable fire that they didn't anticipate. The cozy falsehoods people have settled for are called into question by your mere presence. They can tell by your conviction, your intensity, and your gaze. You don't fit in with the surroundings. You pierce them, revealing realities that others would want to keep hidden. Compromise is necessary for popularity. It requests that you play by the rules, smooth your edges, and tone down your message. But the contrary is required by your calling. You're here to reveal harsh realities, dispel myths, and rouse a generation that has been paralyzed by fear and silence. Detonations aren't safe or subtle, and you're a detonator. They make a lot of noise. They're disorganized. Additionally, they alter their surroundings. Because you're aiming to make a statement, not to blend in. Becoming everyone's favorite is not your goal. You are come to rock the planet as God has designated. Because of this, your presence causes reverberations even when you are silent. You are a voice that will not be muted, a liberator of shackles, and a force for change. Therefore, don't seek praise or approval. Go after your task. There is no need for another well-known person in the world. Only you can provide the prophetic explosion it requires. Heaven poured more into you the more they rejected you. Heaven poured more into you the more they rejected you. It seems as if every no, closed door, and mischance was more than simply a rejection. It was heavenly investment and rerouting. Heaven drew closer while the earth turned away. You gained territory in the unseen instead of losing it. Their rejection increased your spiritual ability rather than making you less. Consider it. God was busy filling you up while they were busy shutting you off. Every setback served as a vessel for revelation. Each seclusion turned into a wisdom incubator. Heaven saw setups where others saw setbacks. Preparations for a spiritual outpouring that was too great for the forces of nature to control. This explains why, even when the outside world seems empty, your inner world feels so full. The reason for this is because your soul is being fed in ways that the material world cannot. There is more to you than meets the eye. More fire, more meaning, more understanding. You function on a different level as a result. Their rejection was never a blank, even if no one around you knows how or why. There was a void for heavenly deposits. They weren't barriers. The nos, they served as doors to more profound understanding. You weren't abandoned. You were completely full. And that overflow is what will ultimately shatter all the chains, destroy all the systems that were put in place to stop you, and put you in a position of power when they didn't think you had won. Therefore, don't let dismissals deter you. Honor them. When the earth said no, heaven said, not yet. I'm filling them for something greater. You are not less because they didn't notice you. You are more, and everything is going to change because of that more. You were made to put an end to silent suffering by others. You were made to put a stop to the quiet suffering of others. This has nothing to do with good fortune or easy favors. It's a burden, a holy obligation. You were given the responsibility to face those darkness head-on, while many others bear unseen wounds and secret sufferings they never dare to express. Pursuing influence or short-term success is not what your life is all about. It's about finding closure and releasing the bonds that have held you down for generations. Because it is more than simply personal, your calling is hefty. It has ancestry. You carry the weight of unsaid tragedies, unwritten memories, and cycles that have harmed communities and families. You have the ability to identify these hidden wounds, bring them to light, and authoritatively destroy them, unlike others who endured their suffering in quiet. Although that weight might sometimes seem lonely, it is a heavenly burden that keeps you apart from the cacophony of petty ambition. You are not alone in your blessings. For those who came before and those who will come after, they are both weapons and healing. The secret to erasing unpleasant legacies lies with you. You're not here to uphold outdated customs or justify wrongdoing. You've come to put a stop to them. Your trip isn't always simple or pleasant because of this. You're ending cycles that have developed over years or perhaps lifetimes. Since healing generational scars requires facing difficult realities that many people shun, this role requires bravery and resilience. It calls for overcoming miscommunication, rejection, and sometimes loneliness. However, it also has an invincible strength, the ability to heal where it didn't seem feasible, to create a future free from the silent pain of the past, and to repair where restoration was long forgotten. This position wasn't handed to you by chance. You have been anointed, equipped, and created to bear hardships that others cannot. Ending what others went through in silence and bringing freedom to future generations is your holy task. You are a portal of purpose rather than a byproduct of suffering. You are not the result of suffering. You serve as a conduit for meaning. What attempted to shatter you left more than just wounds and scars. It created a portal. Every struggle, every adversity, every moment that seemed to be shredding you apart, really built a path for others to follow. You didn't just put up with hardship. It changed you, molded into a path toward recovery, success, and destiny. Pain is all too often seen as a setback or a sign of failure. However, You are a real example that suffering need not be the end. There is a threshold. You experienced more than just personal trauma. You were able to lead others out of their own darkness because of a heavenly refinement. For others who are still stuck in what previously threatened to engulf you, your survival narrative serves as a map, a beacon, and a doorway. This implies that your trip is about more than just you. It's about the lives and generations that will be liberated because you persevered through the flames and survived. You are in possession of invisible spiritual keys that can open prison doors, free prisoners, and unlock chains. Because you are an example of what is achievable despite suffering, others will be inspired to have faith, bravery, and hope just by seeing your life. What God used it to create in you defines you, not what attempted to destroy you. You are a live link between brokenness and healing, between failure and success, a gatekeeper to change. Your testimony won't be the only one heard. They will traverse it. Go beyond the threshold you created with your perseverance and trust. So take a fresh approach to your discomfort. Consider it a gateway rather than a burden. You are not a suffering stamp product. You are a conduit that allows purpose to flow. A holy journey from hopelessness to destiny. You were designed to infiltrate and destroy the system. You were never intended to flee it. The system was never intended for you to break out. You were designed to sneak in and take it down. The idea that you should flee, hide, or otherwise live under the radar is a falsehood meant to put you in a submissive position. Being an oppressed person or a spectator is not your calling. It is to act as the catalyst for its disintegration. You don't just fall between the cracks. You completely destroy the system from the inside out. The system feeds on conformity, fear, and quiet. However, you were made to be brave, honest, and disruptive. You weren't created to fit in or remain marginalized. With divine wisdom, you were made to disarm their schemes, traverse their techniques, and break through every stronghold. You lived in their environment, therefore you are familiar with their language. However, they are unable to decipher the code your spirit communicates. Every chain they attempt to tie you with is broken by a design that was inscribed in heaven. Resistance is not enough for this objective. It calls for destruction. Not destruction for the sake of destruction, but a fundamental dismantling of systems based on injustice, fear, and deception. You are a living example of what emancipation looks like. You are the epitome of freedom. God utilizes your life as a template to rework things that were insurmountable. Instead of running from the opponent, you face it head on. When you are in charge, you don't back down. You grow with power. Patterns are disturbed by your presence. Your words destroy dishonesty, and no one else ventured to confront the barricades that your faith broke down. This has nothing to do with escaping persecution. It's time to put a stop to it. You are neither an afterthought nor an accident. You were carefully designed for this very task. You have the keys, but the system constructed its barriers. You were not summoned to flee. You were given the mission to sneak into, reveal, and completely destroy any stronghold that stands in the way of God's people's freedom. This is not a voyage for the weak of heart or the easily gratified. It's a road lined with unwavering faith, divine purpose, and an unwavering will to topple every institution that keeps you tiny. You were never made to live a life controlled by fear and constraints, or to live up to the superficial expectations of the outside world. Rather, you were designed to be a natural force, a holy storm come to destroy, disturb, and reconstruct. Every obstacle you overcame, every door that shut, and every voice that attempted to quiet you simply strengthened your foundation of truth and increased your strength. You have a legacy that is far bigger than any system can hold. You are the doorway that leads to liberation, the altar that rises from the ashes, and the prophecy that upends the fundamental structures of authority. Your life is an example of what occurs when unwavering bravery and spiritual insight come together. You are a vessel of purpose created to bring about breakthroughs for both you and future generations, not a result of suffering. Thus, be proud of your anointing. Accept the contrasts that give you your invincibility. Allow the rejection to help you grow. And let each no to become a heavenly yes, setting you up for your most important task. Because it was unable to understand the power that passes through a chosen one, the system undervalued you. It is time to get up, to shout, to change the course of history. It's not only about breaking free, remember. It's about being the liberation that others sorely need. You were supposed to forge forward, not to fit in. You were created to rewrite the rules, not to abide by them. God gave you the ability to destroy the barriers that the world attempted to erect around you. Now is your time. Take ownership of it, live it, and see as everything that was put in your way falls apart in front of the irresistible power that is you.